Don Knotts, who grew up in Morgantown, West Virginia, made a living making people laugh.
His Barney Fife character on the Andy Griffith Show, one of the most iconic characters in television history. It earned him 5 Emmy Awards.
Yeah, Don Knotts went on to star in Disney movies and television shows until he died in 2006 at the age of 81.
And still so many of us love to sit and watch those Andy Griffith reruns.
Yes.
It still airs on the Tri-State CW here on our airwaves. And someone who knew him well is joining us this morning to share some fond memories of the comedy great. We knew him as Don Knotts, but Bill, you knew him as Uncle Don.
I did. It was such a privilege. It really was.
Oh, that's so exciting to get to talk to you
It
here.
is. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Yeah, so tell us about Uncle Don. What was he like around family?
Well, it's kind of funny when I say this is people think he was kind of like this persona of Barney Fife, and he wasn't. He was actually very shy. He was an introvert. At family events, you'd see him sitting on the couch, and you have to go over and talk to him or draw him out. But a lot of people don't realize that celebrities are like everybody else. I mean, they have Thanksgiving dinners. We've got birthday parties. I've got pictures of him that I show doing some of that in my show. Just a regular family guy, very quiet.
Yeah.
And but once you got him going on something, he could be funny. So he was a funny guy, but he was very quiet.
That's so interesting to hear. It is, right? Because you would think total opposite. But that's very interesting. So, Bill, you are going to be in Morgantown. You'll be back in the area for the 100th birthday celebration of Don Knotts. Tell us about it. It's the Mayberry Memory Show that you're performing. Do you tell some stories about him? What's the show like?
Oh, sure. I'll tell a lot of stories. I had the privilege of living with Don back when I was in acting school. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts back in the 70s. And Don just said, well, why don't you live with me instead of getting an apartment? And I said, well, that would be fine with me. So I had that privilege of living with Don, and so I have a lot of stories that I'll tell during the show. It's a couple of hours that I have. Well, I'll try to keep it to that. It's actually a 6-hour show when I do it on cruise ships. But for one evening, I try to cut it way down, hour and a half, 2 hours or so. But yeah, I'll tell stories of Don, playing golf together and various times we were together, and then some stories of other celebrities that I heard when they were telling stories, whether it was Andy Griffith or Tim Conway, people like that. So it's a lot of fun just to listen to stories of Don, some personal experiences about how he took some of the family history growing up in West Virginia and put it to his acting, and how they wrote some of that experience from West Virginia into the Andy Griffith Show. So I'll tell a couple stories about that as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never realized he based some of his Barney stories on his character on his roots right here in our area. So do you have a favorite memory or something that you like to tell about Don?
Sure. There's so many of those. One, when I was living with him, it was interesting. It was just Don and me at the dinner table. That's it. And Barbara was cooking. It was a gal that would come in and kind of clean house and cook a little bit for him. And his wife was, I think, off at some event that night. And so just Don and I are there. And like I said, he's introverted and quiet, but he's still funny sometimes. And so with just me as an audience, he looks at his empty plate, looks at the gravy, grabs a ladle full of gravy, puts it out on the plate, grabs his fork, and tries to eat the gravy with a fork, looks at me with a straight face, and just says, well, it is a little thin. And there's nothing that funny about that, but that's just his humor. And so there's a lot of stories like that. And then sitting on the couch with Don, just me and Don, watching the Andy Griffith Show. I'm watching Barney Fife, sitting next to Barney Fife. That was a trip for a 19-year-old kid, I'll tell you. That was it was a lot of fun.
Right? Like you're sitting there watching him on TV and you're like, wait, I'm sitting with this guy right here.
Oh, my
But I'm saying, Don, that's funny right there.
That
he goes,
oh, my goodness.
So it was great.
So, well, we can't wait to see the show. We've so enjoyed hearing all of these memories of yours about Don Knotts. For people that are wanting to attend, Bill, when is the show happening? Do people need tickets to get in the doors?
As far as I know, it's going to be a ticketed event, and it is Monday evening at the Metropolitan Theater there in Morgantown, right where his statue is outside. And I believe you can go, tickets are online there. And I believe it's at 7 p.m., but double check that website. And we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to do some of the stuff that I do on the cruise ship. It's a one-man show on the cruise ship, one-man show here, with a lot of interesting family background, some stories, and of course, a lot of clips from his early history and certainly of the Andy Griffith Show. And I'll talk certainly about his later career, and even end with something interesting that most people don't know much about, is his funeral, which was a very private affair, about 30 people, all family, with the exception of just a couple celebrities, Andy Griffith, Tim Conway, and Tom Poston. And then 3 months later was the more public, even though it was by invitation only, public memorial service at the Writers Guild Theater in Beverly Hills. And I'll tell a few stories about that as well. And Ron Howard told a story about Jim Carrey there. I'll tell that because Jim Carrey, his idol was Don Knotts, and so that's a good story as well.
Yeah.
We'll have some fun.
Oh, wow.
All of these big names that looked at Don for inspiration. And I love to still sit down and watch the Andy Griffith Show with my family. It was such a simple time.
Yes.
Things were not as busy and crazy as they are for us now. So it's still such a favorite memory for so many of us.
You mentioned he was kind of an introvert, but what do you think Don would think of all this fuss over him?
Oh, I think he would enjoy it, but not like you think. He would think it's like, well, that's really interesting. You know, he would have this slow take on it because he actually, and I mentioned this in my show, he was not impressed with celebrities and what they got away with. He thought it was that upset him, some of the things the celebrities got away with. So he was always shy, quiet, and I'll tell a few stories about he was extremely humble, and there's a reason for that, and I'll tell why that happened early in his career. It was after he got his first Emmy, but he got it put in his place after that, and he never forgot that, and he was probably the most humble celebrity that I'd ever been around.
Right, and I think we're all just so proud to say he's from our neck of the woods,
right.
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. And we're so glad to have you, Bill, coming back to Morgantown to do this event. We can't wait to see it, and it was so great to talk with you on our show today. Thank you so much.
So fun.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Now, take a close look at this photo right now. It's a young Don Knotts performing in a play as a student at WVU. He's the one standing, I believe he's the one in front of the fireplace.
Yes, and people at home are going to recognize the student standing behind the couch. Maybe not at first, but when we tell you, you'll be like, really? Yeah, the guy behind the couch holding the piece of paper, that's Boz Johnson.
Yeah.
Yes, Boz later became a news anchor here at WSAZ and the news director. And Susan, we still get the pleasure of working with his son.
His son, Rob Johnson, you see him every morning and at midday today. So isn't that neat, the whole connection there?
It is.
And that Don really got his acting start on the stage at WVU.
Yes, and I remember being on set with Rob one day, and we were just chatting about stuff and life and his mom and his dad, and he pulled up that picture for me because he knew that's where I went to college. I went to West Virginia University, and he said, oh, speaking of that, I have to show you this picture. When he showed that to me, I thought, your dad was in theater with Don Knotts?
Yes.
Which it's just, so cool. it's such a fun little fact. And Don just had this bigger-than-life personality when he was on TV.
Framed man.
Yes.
He was bigger than life.
Yes, I mean, even down to his expressions that he would make an expression and it would make you laugh.
Just sniffing would make us laugh. Yeah.